Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking this time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Claus. Satan Claus. And of course, this is a character, if you will, that if you are a believer, you are all too familiar with. Okay? If you look at Santa Claus, you will see that if you change the word Santa around just a tad, you will get Satan. And if you change the spelling of Claus from Claus to Claws, then you will have a good understanding as to where we are going in this message. Because you see, for years, for decades, for centuries, we have heard of Santa Claus, also known as Saint Nicholas, also known as Saint Nick, Father Christmas, Kris Kringle, Santy, or simply Santa. Okay? And all of these different names that we refer to this man, notice I said man as being, he is still a fictional character. Okay. Now, of course, there is some history where there has been some saints, if you will, acting like Santa Claus in the sense that they gave gifts out to various people. There was a saint by the name of Saint Nicholas, who was a historical Greek bishop, according to Wikipedia, and a gift giver of Myra. Okay. Now, this supposedly nice figure, okay, no big deal, ended up changing over time. And according to Wikipedia, when the Christianization of Germanic Europe came into being, there was a figure, a god, if you will, called Odin. And he was associated with the Germanic pagan midwinter event of Yule. And he led the wild hunt, which was a ghostly procession through the sky. Now, if you are a believer, you already know that even sounds wrong. Because we know that the one true God doesn't want us idol worshiping. Okay? But Santa is being made into an idol anytime he comes into the house, and his statues are here, there, and everywhere. The tree, if you will, is also made into an idol this time of year, decorated all beautifully, placed in the corner somewhere where it can be seen by all. And of course, there are gifts that are under the tree, and in order to get those gifts, you have to bow down. Now, hey, we don't want to judge, right? We don't want to cause any problems. I mean, this is supposed to be a joyous season, but you know, when you walk close enough with the Lord, He always shows you where you're in error. And you can either go along with what makes you feel good and pay the consequences later, or you can make some changes. And you can stop with the idol worshiping and stop doing some things that's going to put you in a position where you just look like a hypocrite. You just don't look very believable. And folks tend not to want to listen to you much because, well, you're acting just like the world and you're doing worldly things. And what have you really given up since you've been walking with Christ? Sounds like you want God to co-sign on everything you do. And the only time you want to deal with God is when you're in trouble. I mean, that is typically the relationship that many believers have. You know, they control God, so to speak, and God isn't supposed to control them. But I will tell you that if you are listening to these messages and you have a sense of who I am and what I'm about, you know, God is not going to sit there and say it's okay. It's okay to sing songs about Santa Claus coming to town and, you know, giving Santa all the praise and telling the children to be good, or else Santa is not going to give you this, that, and the other, knowing full well that Santa is a fictional character, but you make him real. Now, if your child was to lie to you and tell you that they knew someone that was going to do this, that, and the other for them, and then you found out that that was a lie, you would be upset, right, with your child for telling you so many stories. Once again, we have to check ourselves before we start checking other people about lies and, coming up with all sorts of idols to worship. Okay? Don't shoot the messenger. We're just going through all of this Santa Claus type of stuff that's going on, also known as Satan Claus. Okay? Now, I got this name Satan Claus actually from my son. We had already talked about Santa and the word being inverted into Satan, and how, he's dressed in red, and the fictional caricature of Satan is also red, and, things of that sort. But then he brought up Claus. He said, well, claws grab. And I thought, yes, they do. And he said, see, and he takes his hand and he places it up near my face, and he says, see, claws, they grab. And I said, yeah. I said, Satan Claus. And he said, yep, Satan Claus. You see, this is the time of year where Satan has his hand, if you will, his claws on a lot of folks, because he knows that he can make them feel good about their sin. You see, because this is that joyous season, and he knows how to mix his sin into all of what is supposed to be righteous and true, and it's supposed to be about Christ's birthday and all of that. Meanwhile, no one really knows when Christ was born, but So all of this stuff is going on, and Satan is right there in the mix, getting his praise. Okay, he's right there clawing on some folks, using what they love to do to get the best of them. Okay, so you love to shop. Well, Satan's going to push you a little bit further into going into some debt. Then, of course, what does he do? He destroys families, right? He causes all sorts of problems. He kills and he steals. So now, you've got these rip-off products where businesses have hiked up the price, basically ripping you for your money. Then you've got some things that people want. Those that can't afford it, if you live in a wrong neighborhood, they're going to steal. And then those that have had problems in their relationship long before Christmas, now Christmas shows up, and that sort of takes things over the edge a bit. Now the marriage is destroyed, or the relationship is destroyed. You see how Satan wiggles his way into things, and it seems so harmless. Oh, it was just an argument. Next thing you know, January rolls around, you got all these couples divorcing. Okay, it wasn't just an argument. Satan was working all through the year, using various holidays, using various arguments, breaking folks down mentally, physically, and spiritually, walking around with no moral compass. By the time January the following year comes around, folks are contemplating on breaking up. Folks are crying over debt. Arguments are taking place. People are upset because things got stolen or broken or ruined because of people coming and going out of their house during the holidays. You see how something that started off that was just so positive and nice, the idols got all in that house, right? Folks were decorating things up, yet they were talking about Jesus and Lord and everything else, but then they're not recognizing the fact that there are some things that are designated to Satan. And so when you bring Satan's vices into your home, you're basically saying, yes, you can have your way. You can have your way in my home. There's going to be conflict. You got to make up in your mind. Who are you going to serve? As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. You see, you've got to make up in your mind what you want to do. Now, this whole process of Christmas, one thing about it, when you first start a holiday, it's hard to break that holiday. So you have to, little by little, cut things away. One year, you cut the Christmas tree. Another year, you cut, certain decor, like the Santa Claus. Okay? Another year, you pull back on the gifts. But gradually, if you're walking with the Lord, He's going to show you things, and you want to start cutting those things away. Okay? And you will notice that you'll have less stress too. Sure, there will be those that'll say, oh, you don't celebrate Christmas. What's wrong with you? And all that other stuff. But the truth of the matter is that you want to just offer up a sacrifice, if you will, by giving up some things that you know are just not beneficial. They're really not. It's just a feel-good occasion, but then it tends to cause some confusion with many folks. It may not for you, but for many folks it is an issue. If they don't have enough money, they don't want to come over to your house because you got all the gifts and so forth. Okay, it makes them feel uncomfortable, or it's something that they just don't believe in because of their own, personal beliefs. You might be at war with folks because you're big on Christmas. Okay, you gotta wonder though, why are you so big on Christmas? And meanwhile, you talk about God. Well, I'm incorporating God into it. But once again, when we're playing around with demonic types of things that have roots in paganism, you can't keep doing that and think that God's going to be okay with it. Sometimes we bring curses upon ourselves because we're disobedient. And then we don't connect the dots. We assume that, all this stuff is going on. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. But and sometimes it has everything to do with it. Everything to do. So now there's a history that goes on besides the god of Odin and all of this Santa worship, and how Satan, just puts his claws, on various things and affects people and their relationships and so forth. There's a rise of Krampus. Okay. Now Krampus there were many Krampuses that would travel with Santa. These were the demons in the history of Christmas and all of that. If you do some research, you'll find out in other countries this was so. So if the children were naughty, the Krampuses or demons would spank them, okay, and or swat them on their behinds. If the children were nice, then, they would, give them something. But this evil demonic creature that has been brought forth again, which has still been around in the older countries, he's a half goat, half demon. And he was rooted out of the Austrian lore, okay? It was some storytelling back then that brought him forth. But even though, once again, this stuff is all fictional, made up, bunch of myths, ha ha, he, it's all fun. Remember, in the spiritual realm, this isn't fake stuff. This isn't, to be taken lightly. In the spiritual realm, a lot of demonic things take place, as well as good things too. But the demonic things, you've got this Krampus being, if you will, that's been raised up all around the world, all over again, never left, okay? But here in the United States, he's making a scene again. They're having what they call these parties that are dedicated to this fictional, folklore, mythical, satanic creature Krampus, okay? And there's the movies and so forth. So this evil thing is being celebrated right along with this idol, and it all has Satan's stamp on it at the end of the day. Now, whether it's a nice, happy-go-lucky, cheery, fat fellow, or this Krampus with horns and dark hair and fangs and, he's celebrating, the point of the matter is that neither of these have anything to do with God. Okay, none of it. Then you got those who say, well, I'm going to turn all this mess around and it's going to be about Jesus. Okay, but then you still got the Christmas tree next to the cross. You see? So it's not the type of thing you want to get yourself involved with if you can help yourself. And what's interesting, remember what I told you, my son had played on that whole name of Claus and said Claws. Krampus The name was derived from the German word Krampen, which means claw. Okay? And it's said to be the son of Hel. And this Hel character rules the realm of the dead in Norse mythology. Messing around once again with mythical types of stuff. So this Krampus, he, according to the nationalgeographic.com website, he's got these characteristics that are demonic. This is in their words. Creatures in Greek mythology, including satyrs and fauns. Okay? Messing around with the demonic. Okay? Pagan characters. And these things are added into various Christmas celebrations in Austria, in southern Germany, here in the United States. Okay? And you will see, they say, this Krampus in Catholic countries as well. So it's unfortunate that this sort of thing takes place. But it is what it is. And what we're supposed to do is we are to pray for our families. We are not supposed to be endorsing this sort of thing. Okay? Go into these parties, you know it's going to be alcohol served. It's going to be some drugs, possibly, depending on the type of atmosphere you're in. And so people will use I was drunk or I was high as excuses to mess around with people's wives and husbands and even little children. Okay? This is how ugly this thing can get. On top of that, they can use a holiday to do any number of things, okay, including hurting someone, because now you're opening up your door to all sorts of folks in the spirit of giving, and you don't know who's that wolf dressed in sheep's clothing coming to your house. But so-and-so invited this person. Or you may be the one going to somebody's function and you don't know who all is going to be there. So it's interesting how Krampus, he has found his way, a character that's very similar to many beastly looking characters around Halloween. He's found his way into Christmas. Once again, taking the shine away from Christ. And making sure that Satan is being worshipped. This is why we just don't need to be messing around with any of these holidays. The best thing to do is to always go into history and find out what are the roots and how Satan has changed some things over the years. You also need to look at the types of holidays that God has spoke to his people about if you must celebrate a holiday. And I do have audio on YouTube about that if you want to partake in godly holidays, so to speak. There are those types of rituals that do take place around this time of year. So if you do feel a little bit awkward, a little bit strange, those of you all who are sensitive to all sorts of activity, if you will, know that there are those folks that are doing their number of chants and raising all sorts of demonic figures. They're also celebrating the gods, and they are also just, some of them are wishing evil on some folks. Okay, so I want you to know that we are not to be taking this particular season lightly. Be in prayer. Ask the Lord to protect your children, grandchildren from all harm and danger. And also try to stay away from any type of atmosphere where people's minds are being affected as a result of drugs and alcohol use, because you don't want to get caught up in some foolishness, nor do you want your children to be off in some little room somewhere with Uncle so-and-so, Aunt such and such, or the friend of the family, getting a little bit, inappropriate with some people. I mean, this is serious. So I thank you so much for taking this time out to listen. As always, to God, the one true God, be the glory.